There comes a moment in every woman's life when she has to make a decision. Not a decision about a man, not a decision about whether he will stay, whether he will call, whether he will choose her, or whether he will finally recognize her value. The real decision is about herself. She has to decide, what am I willing to accept in my life? Because the moment you answer that question honestly, your entire life begins to change. You see, attraction is not built by giving someone everything they want. Attraction is not created by constantly proving yourself, constantly being available, constantly responding, constantly forgiving, or constantly trying to convince someone that you are worthy of love. Real power begins when you understand that your presence is valuable because of who you are, not because of how desperately someone wants you. And there is one boundary that changes everything. You do not give unlimited access to someone who gives you limited effort. Let that sink in. You don't punish them. You don't manipulate them. You don't play games. You don't disappear just to make somebody chase you. You simply stop rewarding inconsistency with deeper access. That is the difference between a woman who is trying to be chosen and a woman who has already chosen herself. And when you choose yourself, something extraordinary happens. People begin to experience the consequence of not treating you properly. If a man knows that he can disappear for 3 days, come back with a "hey stranger," and immediately receive your attention, he has learned something. He has learned that your boundaries have no consequences. If he can cancel repeatedly and you keep rearranging your life around him, he learns that your time is negotiable. If he can speak to you disrespectfully and you remain available because you're afraid of losing him, he learns that access to you is not connected to how he treats you. But when a woman says, calmly and confidently, "That doesn't work for me," and then lives according to that standard, the dynamic changes, not because she has manipulated the man, because she has stopped abandoning herself. And that is where your transformation begins. There is a divine principle that operates throughout life. What you repeatedly tolerate becomes part of the environment you live in. If you tolerate chaos, chaos becomes familiar. If you tolerate disrespect, disrespect becomes normalized. If you tolerate inconsistency, inconsistency becomes your relationship pattern. But when you raise your standard, you force your environment to respond. Some people will rise, some people will leave. And that is okay. Because a boundary is not designed to keep everyone. A boundary is designed to reveal who belongs. Think about that. You don't need to chase a man into becoming the man you hope he will become. You need to become so clear about your values that his behavior gives you the information you need. If he respects you, you know. If he doesn't, you know. If he is consistent, you know. If he isn't, you know. Your job is not to negotiate with reality. Your job is to recognize it. And one of the most powerful things a woman can do is stop arguing with someone's behavior. Stop saying, "But he says he loves me." Look at what he does. Stop saying, "Maybe he's just busy." Look at the pattern. Stop saying, "Maybe he doesn't know what I need." Communicate clearly. And then watch what happens, because mature love doesn't require you to become a detective. Healthy connection doesn't require you to constantly decode silence. And genuine interest doesn't require you to beg someone to notice you. There is a profound difference between being patient and being available for neglect. There is a difference between understanding someone's struggles and becoming responsible for their lack of effort. There is a difference between loving someone and losing yourself inside that love. And the boundary that protects you is this: I can love you, but I will not abandon myself to keep you. That sentence can change your life, because the moment you stop making another person's presence more important than your own peace, you become emotionally free. And emotional freedom is powerful. A man may become fascinated by a woman who has emotional freedom because she doesn't behave from fear. She doesn't need to manipulate him. She doesn't need to threaten him. She doesn't need to manufacture jealousy. She doesn't need to compete with other women. She doesn't need to constantly ask, "Do you still love me?" She watches, she listens, she observes, and then she makes decisions based on reality. That's strength. And understand something. Obsession is not the goal. Respect is the goal. Consistency is the goal. Mutual desire is the goal. But when you develop that level of self-respect, you naturally become more compelling because you are no longer trying to extract validation from another human being. You are operating from abundance instead of desperation. And people can feel the difference. A woman who needs someone to validate her worth will behave differently from a woman who already knows her worth. The first woman asks, "What do I need to do so he won't leave?" The second asks, "Does this relationship honor the woman I am becoming?" The first asks, "How can I make him choose me?" The second asks, "Is he demonstrating that he deserves a place in my life?" Those are completely different questions, and different questions create different lives. So let me challenge you. What have you been tolerating because you're afraid of what will happen if you stop? What behavior have you been excusing because you don't want to lose the person? What boundary have you been afraid to enforce because you think enforcing it will push him away? Now, hear this carefully. If your boundary pushes someone away, the boundary did not destroy the relationship. It revealed the relationship. That is a completely different way of seeing your life. You are not losing someone when your self-respect causes them to leave. You are discovering that they wanted access to you without responsibility toward you. And there is nothing wrong with letting that door close, because every closed door creates clarity. Sometimes the greatest blessing is not getting what you desperately wanted. Sometimes the blessing is discovering why you shouldn't have wanted it. Life has a way of protecting you through revelation, and when you stop forcing what doesn't fit, you create room for what does. So set the boundary, not angrily, not dramatically, not with revenge in your heart. Set it with peace. Say, "I value consistency." Say, "I don't participate in relationships where communication disappears without explanation." Say, "I expect respect." Say, "If something doesn't work for me, I will step away." And this is the part most people struggle with, keep your word to yourself, because a boundary without action is only a preference. If you say, "I won't accept disrespect," and then continue rewarding disrespect, you teach yourself that your own words don't matter. But every time you honor a boundary, you build trust with yourself. Every time you walk away from what violates your values, you become stronger. Every time you refuse to beg for what should be freely given, your identity becomes stronger. And eventually, you reach a point where you don't need someone to choose you because you are no longer willing to choose someone who consistently fails to meet you. That's freedom. And from that freedom, something beautiful happens. You stop looking for love as a rescue. You start experiencing love as an addition to an already meaningful life. You stop asking someone to complete you. You invite someone to build with you. You stop making another person's attention the measure of your worth. You make your character, your purpose, your values, your faith, your growth, and your contribution the foundation of your identity. And now you're dangerous in the best possible way, because you cannot easily be controlled by fear of abandonment. You cannot easily be manipulated by temporary attention. You cannot easily be impressed by empty promises. You have developed discernment, and discernment is one of the greatest forms of power. A woman with discernment doesn't ask only, "Does he want me?" She asks, "Does his behavior align with the kind of relationship I want?" That question protects your heart. So stop trying to become irresistible by becoming more available. Become irresistible by becoming more authentic. Become irresistible by developing your purpose. Become irresistible by protecting your peace. Become irresistible by honoring your word. Become irresistible by becoming a woman who doesn't need to betray herself to keep somebody else. Because the deepest attraction isn't created when someone realizes they can possess you. It is created when they realize they have the opportunity to know you, but they must treat that opportunity with respect. And remember this: you are not here to convince anyone of your value. You are here to live it. Your time is valuable. Your energy is valuable. Your attention is valuable. Your emotional presence is valuable. Your love is valuable. And valuable things require discernment. So from this day forward, stop asking, "How do I make him obsessed with me?" Ask something far more powerful. "What kind of woman do I need to become so deeply rooted in my values that I no longer trade my peace for attention?" That is the transformation, because when you become that woman, you don't have to chase. You don't have to perform. You don't have to compete. You don't have to manipulate. You don't have to beg. You simply stand in your truth, and the right person will recognize it. The wrong person will resist it. Either way, you win. Because your boundary has done exactly what it was supposed to do. It has protected the most important relationship you will ever have, the relationship you have with yourself. So walk forward with your head high. Love deeply, but don't lose yourself. Give generously, but don't give without discernment. Forgive, but don't repeatedly volunteer for the same wound. Be compassionate, but don't confuse compassion with self-abandonment. And never forget, the moment you stop accepting less than what aligns with your values, you stop teaching people how little they can give you. You begin teaching the world how you expect to be treated. And that begins with one decision. Choose yourself. Choose your peace. Choose your purpose. Choose your standards. And let the people who truly belong in your life meet you there. Because the woman who knows her worth doesn't need to convince anyone that she is valuable. She simply refuses to live as though she isn't. There comes a moment when a woman has to stop asking, "How do I make him value me?" and start asking, "How am I valuing myself?" Because the way you allow yourself to be treated becomes the standard other people learn to follow. Self-respect is not something you demand from another person. It is something you demonstrate through your decisions. When you set the boundary of self-respect, you are saying, "I will not trade my peace for temporary attention. I will not accept inconsistency simply because I am afraid of losing someone. I will not shrink my standards just to keep someone comfortable." That is not arrogance. That is alignment. You don't need to become cold. You don't need to punish anyone. You don't need to play games or pretend you don't care. You simply become clear. If someone repeatedly disrespects your time, you stop making yourself endlessly available. If someone continually gives you mixed signals, you stop investing emotionally in uncertainty. If someone wants the benefits of your presence without offering genuine effort, you stop giving unlimited access. That is what makes a boundary powerful. It is not about controlling another person's behavior. It is about controlling your participation in what doesn't honor you. And here's the deeper principle. Every time you compromise your values to keep someone, you teach yourself that being chosen by them is more important than being faithful to yourself. But every time you honor your own boundary, you strengthen your identity. A man can sense when a woman is desperate for his approval, but he can also sense when she is deeply grounded in herself. She has a life beyond him. She has purpose beyond his attention. She can love him without making him the center of her universe. That woman doesn't have to announce her worth. Her choices communicate it. She doesn't say, "You better respect me." She simply refuses to remain where respect is consistently absent. She doesn't say, "You better appreciate me." She stops overgiving where appreciation is repeatedly missing. She doesn't threaten to walk away. She knows she will. And that quiet certainty changes everything. There is a powerful moment in a woman's life when she realizes that chasing someone does not create genuine love. You can pursue attention, send another message, explain yourself one more time, give more than you should, and constantly make yourself available. But none of those things can manufacture authentic desire. Real connection has to be mutual. It has to move toward you as naturally as you move toward it. When you stop chasing what is meant to meet you, you are not giving up on love. You are giving up on forcing love. There is a difference. Chasing often comes from fear. The fear that if you stop pursuing, the person will disappear. But when you constantly act from fear, you surrender your power to someone else's response. Instead, learn to create space for truth to reveal itself. If he wants to communicate, allow him the opportunity to communicate. If he wants to see you, let him make an effort. If he genuinely values the relationship, give him room to demonstrate that value through consistent actions. You don't have to carry the entire relationship on your back. This does not mean becoming distant or playing hard to get. It means becoming emotionally balanced. You can express interest without becoming dependent on a response. You can care without constantly checking whether he cares. You can communicate your feelings without repeatedly explaining them to someone who refuses to listen. There is wisdom in allowing people to show you who they are. Sometimes silence gives you information. Sometimes distance gives you clarity. Sometimes your decision to stop chasing reveals whether someone was genuinely moving toward you or simply enjoying how much you were willing to pursue them. And when you stop chasing, you reclaim something incredibly valuable: your attention. Your attention is energy. Where your attention goes, your emotional world follows. If all of your attention is focused on whether someone called, texted, replied, liked, returned, or changed, you slowly make their behavior the center of your life. Bring that attention back to yourself. Return to your purpose. Return to your growth. Return to your relationships, your creativity, your goals, your faith, and the person you are becoming. The right connection should add to your life, not require you to abandon your life just to maintain it. When you stop chasing, you don't lose your power. You finally stop giving it away. A powerful woman understands that there is a difference between having standards and trying to control another person. Your standards define what you are willing to participate in. Your demands attempt to dictate what another person must do. When you understand that difference, your relationships become healthier, clearer, and far more peaceful. You don't need to tell someone, "You must text me every hour," to prove that you deserve attention. Instead, you can recognize that consistent communication matters to you and decide what you will do when consistency is repeatedly absent. That is the strength of a boundary. You are not controlling his choices. You are controlling your response to those choices. A boundary says, "This is what I value, and this is what I am willing to accept in my life." It doesn't need anger behind it. It doesn't need threats. It doesn't need a dramatic announcement. Sometimes the strongest boundary is communicated through calm behavior. If respect matters to you, don't spend months arguing with someone about respecting you. Make your expectation clear, observe their behavior, and make decisions accordingly. If commitment matters to you, don't endlessly convince someone to commit. Let their actions reveal whether they are capable of giving you what you desire. If honesty matters to you, don't become a detective trying to uncover every hidden truth. Create an environment where honesty is expected and recognize what repeated dishonesty tells you. This is where many women become trapped. They confuse explaining their standards with enforcing their standards. They keep repeating what they need, hoping that eventually the other person will understand. But sometimes the other person understands perfectly. They simply don't want to meet the standard. And that's where self-respect becomes essential. You cannot force someone to become compatible with you. You cannot negotiate someone into having the same values. You cannot love someone into emotional maturity. But you can decide what kind of behavior receives access to your heart. That decision changes your energy. You become less reactive because you are no longer trying to control outcomes. You become more observant because you are allowing behavior to provide information. You become calmer because you know you don't have to convince anyone to give you what you fundamentally need. The most powerful boundary is not, "You have to treat me this way." It is, "If this relationship cannot meet the values that matter to me, I will have the courage to choose differently." Peace is one of the most valuable things a woman can protect, because once you understand what emotional chaos costs you, you stop confusing intensity with love. A relationship can have passion, chemistry, and strong emotions while still being unhealthy for your spirit. Not every connection that feels powerful is meant to remain in your life. When you begin protecting your peace, you stop allowing another person's inconsistency to control your emotional state. You no longer spend the entire day wondering why he hasn't replied, what his silence means, whether he is losing interest, or what you can do to make him come closer. You recognize that your life is too valuable to be placed on emotional standby. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop abandoning yourself while caring for someone else. There is a profound difference between love and emotional dependency. Love can say, "I want you in my life." Dependency says, "I cannot be okay without you." Love gives freely. Dependency often gives from fear. And fear makes you tolerate things you would never advise your closest friend to tolerate. When you protect your peace, you begin asking better questions. Instead of asking, "How can I keep him?" you ask, "Does this relationship bring out the healthiest version of me?" Instead of asking, "Why is he acting this way?" you ask, "What is his behavior showing me?" Instead of constantly trying to fix the connection, you become willing to step back and observe whether both people are actually contributing. That shift is transformational. Your peace should not depend on someone's mood, attention, approval, or availability. Build a life so meaningful that one person's absence cannot destroy your sense of identity. Invest in your goals. Strengthen your character. Spend time with people who genuinely support you. Develop your talents. Take care of your mind. Deepen your spiritual foundation. Become so connected to your own purpose that romantic uncertainty cannot consume your entire world. And understand this. Sometimes protecting your peace means saying no to conversations that repeatedly become disrespectful. Sometimes it means stepping away from relationships that constantly drain you. Sometimes it means refusing to respond immediately when you are emotionally overwhelmed and choosing to respond from wisdom instead. Peace is not weakness. Peace is power under control. A woman who protects her peace becomes harder to manipulate because fear no longer determines her decisions. She can love deeply without tolerating endlessly. She can forgive without forgetting the lesson. She can care about someone and still choose herself when the relationship repeatedly violates what she knows she needs. There is a moment when a woman becomes truly powerful in relationships. The moment she stops allowing words alone to determine how much access someone receives to her heart, her time, and her life. Anyone can make promises. Anyone can say, I care about you. Anyone can describe the future they want with you. But character is revealed through repeated behavior. If someone tells you that you matter, but consistently makes you feel like an option, pay attention to the pattern. If someone says they want commitment, but repeatedly avoids responsibility, pay attention to the pattern. If someone says they respect you, but continues crossing boundaries, believe what their actions are communicating. This doesn't mean becoming suspicious of everyone. It means becoming discerning. Words matter, but actions give those words credibility. A woman with healthy boundaries doesn't punish a man for making mistakes. She understands that nobody is perfect. The question is not whether someone will ever disappoint you. The question is what they do after they disappoint you. Do they take responsibility? Do they listen? Do they make a genuine effort to change? Do their actions eventually become consistent with their promises? That is where trust is built. You don't have to immediately give someone unlimited access just because the chemistry is strong. Let trust develop through consistency. Let emotional intimacy grow alongside demonstrated reliability. Let someone's behavior show you whether they can handle the privilege of being close to you. This is not about making a man work for your affection as though love were a reward. It is about understanding that intimacy requires responsibility. When you give someone access to your deepest emotions, your vulnerability, your time, and your energy, you are giving them something valuable. That access should be connected to trust, and trust is earned through patterns. A single beautiful conversation doesn't establish character. A single apology doesn't establish transformation. A single romantic gesture doesn't establish commitment. Look at what happens repeatedly. Does he show up when it matters? Does he communicate when things become difficult? Does he respect your boundaries even when he doesn't agree with them? Does he make an effort without needing to be constantly reminded? Does he treat you with respect when there is nothing immediate to gain? Those questions reveal far more than promises ever could. And when a woman allows actions to determine access, she becomes emotionally grounded. She no longer feels pressured to decide everything immediately. She gives people the space to reveal themselves. She doesn't need to chase evidence. She simply watches the pattern. Because consistency is one of the clearest forms of communication, and when someone's actions repeatedly align with their words, trust has something real to stand on. Thank you for listening and allowing these words to speak to your heart. May you walk forward with greater self-respect, stronger boundaries, deeper peace, and the courage to choose what truly honors you. Until we meet again, remember, never abandon yourself to be chosen by someone else. Choose yourself, protect your peace, and trust that what is truly meant for you will meet you with respect.